happening. And also very close to the equator. So the impacts of climate change, as we can see, one is, of course, the sea level rise. And I'm assuming that since it is AABN, there may be quite a few people from the peninsula part. I'm sitting in Delhi, but we are already observing sea level rise in many parts of, because we have a 7,000-kilometer coastline, and we have already started observing sea level rise in many of the locations within India. And then, of course, you have cyclones. As you might have noticed that, there's been a big talk about, how the Arabian Sea got very hot, and then how it is now creating a lot of localized cyclones, even in the, Dubai incidents, we had, and we have had the entire West Coast almost half submerged during the monsoons this year. And also, although the monsoonal cyclones in India are very closely related to El Nino and La Nina, which is generated in near South America, and then it comes towards India. But some localized cyclones are also happening, and then we are also observing a lot more vigorous cyclones in the Bay of Bengal, what they call as the northeast monsoons or the cyclonic monsoons. So all those kind of problems also we have been seeing. We have been seeing a lot of floods, not only in the rural areas, but also in urban areas. And you see that most of the time it is indicated that precipitation, which is supposed to occur in the whole year or something like that, it happens in just 2-3 days. And therefore, most of the areas are caught unaware. And landslides, I don't need to talk about it. We have just had several instances, not only in the south, in Wayanad and other places, but also in the north. And, Himalayas have been experiencing tremendous amount of landslides, almost from now almost close to a decade. But this year has been really, really bad. Then simultaneously, we are also having problems of water shortage. It is somewhat connected to the very high temperatures, but it's also, availability shortage. That is, we are not taking the opportunity of capturing some of the excess water that we are getting, and also we are exploiting the underground storage, and therefore we are also having availability and shortage problem during the time when there is no rainfall. And of course, high temperatures and cold waves. So in many places, we've been having extremely hot weather. This year, Delhi recorded 52 degrees Celsius, and several other places also have recorded very high temperatures. And even globally, countries like Canada and some places in Europe and all have recorded high temperatures for their location, which is like 40 degrees Celsius, etc. So, and of course, drought has also been, because the soil moisture has been evaporating at a very fast rate, and which is, so if you don't have adequate methods of, preventing the soil moisture loss, including shading, including, continuous methods of making sure that moisture is retained, and of course, deforestation and these kind of reasons. So these are not the only impacts, but these are the main impacts. Of course, there are many more impacts, but these are considered as the primary ones which will lead to the others. Of course, the climate change impacts on health and nutrition has been, again and again brought out several times. And it has been shown that, vector-borne diseases, like even dengue and malaria and all that are now, people, recently J&K set up a center for surveillance of dengue and things like that. So you will find even in mountainous areas and cold areas, the vector-borne diseases are increasing. And also, different types of fevers and flus and COVID or any other type of zoonotic diseases can also suddenly occur because of mutation, because of high temperatures, because of adaptation of various vectors, and also organisms which are carrying these. Then, of course, the change in water availability also affects, because you cannot have proper hygiene if you don't have adequate water. And on one hand, they say that, climate productivity, productivity of some agricultural species may go up in Southeast Asia and all that. But in our country, mostly it is going to be reduction. And also there is a nutritional reduction in our some of our food crops. And also, of course, as I said, the productivity of land itself, the loss of moisture, drought, and also affected by cyclones and floods, because many crops just get destroyed because of that. And so this is an important graph. This, during IPCC 5, they brought it out, AR5, what they call. They changed from what is known as that is the representative carbon pathways. So earlier, they used to do the predictiveness in a different way. Then they brought it to the RCP effect. This is just to show that depending on the representative carbon pathways, this is basically, you can say that it is not just only carbon dioxide alone. It is carbon dioxide equivalents also. You can clearly see concentration carbon dioxide equivalent, including all forcing agents. So they have said that if we follow business as usual, and so by 2100, the carbon dioxide ppm will go to 1250. And I was telling you, at 450 itself, it's creating enough ruckus and it's creating enough problems for us. So if it is 1250, I can barely say what most of the land will be underwater or something like that. But if we do certain amount of adjustments to our way of living, our lifestyle, our approaches, then there is a possibility that we might be able to limit it to 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius increase, and which might help us in... Yes, excuse me. Yes. Okay. So that might help us in restricting the damage that can happen. So this is April 2024 data. As you can see here, that it's been, our own National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration data. This is NOAA. And you can see that April warming trend this year has already shown 1.32 degrees Celsius, hottest April on record. So it has already started to increase. So that is why, you saw how they, even in the Paris Agreement, and how much, there was a lot of emphasis on how this needs to be limited, or else it will become a problem in future. So the environmental report also highlights that, there are places, temperatures were above average over much of the globe. And then there's a 61% chance that 2024 will be the warmest. Every year they keep saying that. But every year, that particular year is declared as the warmest. So that means that, we are continuously increasing. There is also the snow cover extent reducing, which is not a good thing, because snow cover, and as you know, especially in India, we are highly dependent. Many of the northern rivers are completely dependent on extent of snow cover on the Himalayas. Then, of course, the cyclonic activity was below average, but also number of storms have increased. So as you can see here, the the red portions, which is showing us the impact because of high temperatures, is continuously increasing almost uniformly throughout the globe. And precipitation anomalies also. El Nino, La Nina is not a new thing that keeps happening. We know that. But at the same time, what are the kind of anomalies that are happening throughout the world? So somewhere it shows extreme floods and people losing lives because of that. On the other hand, it shows extreme dryness. And the same way, you can see that the normal precipitation for the globe, which has changed from 1961 onwards, how much the precipitation and various types of impacts because of that is continuously changing. So the dark blue is showing excess, and the brownish color is showing less. So extreme weather events we experienced in all these places in this year itself, in 2024 itself. We experienced, everybody said, oh, the Arabian Sea got very hot, and that's the reason why we had floods in Dubai. And then we have been hearing about floods in Japan, in China continuously, and also in places like North America. And, we have also seen the amount of devastation that has been happening, throughout the world, where some are receiving very less precipitation and others are excess. So in the climate change in India, there are more than 30 climate sensitive sectors, out of which agriculture, water, health, energy, transport, tourism will be highly affected, highly vulnerable to environmental factors and weather and climate extremes, and devastation from tropical cyclones. So, the peninsula especially is highly sensitive to, different types of cyclones which come. Mostly they used to come only from the eastern side, but we have recently started seeing also from the west coast. And you can also see heat stress. Places earlier it was only mentioned in Rajasthan, Churu or some place like that. But, we are experiencing now in almost the entire nation, heat stress and loss of lives because of, and you might have heard during the election time, several people in northern India, especially Uttar Pradesh and several places, people who had to guard election booths and all that, they lost their lives, more than 150. I'm just pointing out that is not a data or a statistic, but I'm just trying to say people who are forced to work outdoors and who have no choice but to do so, they are getting highly impacted. But because it was something related with the elections, it has come in the news. But many of these don't even get recorded, and we don't even come to know about it. So the economic costs related to natural disasters, which are connected with climate change, which can be easily said to be associated with climate change, is increasing tremendously. Sorry? Yes? Okay. So it also shows even in the urban areas are also facing tremendous amount of stress because of climate change. And there are several low-lying coastal areas, especially cities, which have already been mentioned. And we are actually seeing it. I mean, yesterday also I was listening into a particular conversation. And what we found was that there are locations in India itself where sometimes even I have, even in Kerala, even in southern Tamil Nadu, we have found that where the level of the ocean is higher than the land. Therefore, sometimes the high tide just comes in and doesn't go. So there have been cases which have been reported very recently in Kochi and several other places where people have had to abandon their homes and move inwards because of coastal surges and, these kind of issues. So in South and East Asia, The floodplains of great rivers have always been home to a vast number of people, and therefore a lot of the economic activity. See, we'll come to the water management in a minute, but just talking about floods, so we have been seeing that national budgets can ill afford. This year's national budget had 5 states mentioned. And you saw the amount of ruckus in parliament that, how come, you feel that, this particular state doesn't have floods and, we don't need money for it. So it's a constant tug of war as to where do you put your money, and where is the best place to which we really need to address our challenges. So as you can see in urban areas, especially the current urban services are tremendously impacted. And if we don't take adequate, and having been in National Institute of Urban Affairs, we were constantly looking at all the services which are being offered in urban areas. And we found that almost every particular service was impacted by several, in great, very, very high degree. So you can see that water supply is affected by almost 3.5 times. That is, the gap is much more than what is the availability. Sewage, India, maximum, the 500 class 1 cities. In urban sector, we mean class 1 cities when we say a population of 100,000 or more. That is 1 lakh or more. The rest are called as class 2, class 3, class 4, like that. So even after Amrit, even after Jal Jeevan and all that, we have not been able to do, not even cover the 500 class 1 cities. And most of the other cities, and we are supposed to have approximately 8,000 cities, including the census towns. I think most of you know what a census town is. More than 5,000 population and 75% of male population not working in agricultural sector. And then, of course, the density should be 450 and all those kind of things. But technically, we have about 8,000 cities, out of which not even 500 are properly sewered. Solid waste, there is a 4-time gap. Private transportation, double. Then even in transit, transport, affordable housing. So the thing is that there is no sector in the urban services where the gap is not continuously increasing, and we are struggling almost every day to meet these kind of gaps. And then, of course, this is a repeat, I'm sorry to say. And you can see here, this is the way the climate change is impacting. I think many of you may remember that, during tsunami, we lost the Mandapam island, or whatever you call it, the island, almost completely. And even in the Sundarbans, we have lost several islands. And many of the people who used to live in those kind of, you can say, delta-made islands have now completely moved into the mainland, because there used to be a time when they used to be submerged and then reappear, but now that is also not happening. So many, many people have become ecological refugees. And so the mainland is going to have to bear the brunt. And our neighbor, Bangladesh, also is experiencing a lot of loss of land. So what are environmental and social events, ENSO events? That is what is really increasing now, if you see. And you see, we were yesterday's conversation when I was listening in, that person also mentioned about, the fact that Bihar, we experience a lot of floods because of the Kosi and Mechi and all that. And that is international. And then, we have to actually talk to Nepal and various other things like that. And of course, the whole case of Brahmaputra. But one of the things that we have to also remember is that many of these rivers, which are called as international rivers, whether it is, the Ganga going or Padma going towards Bangladesh, or the Brahmaputra, which is coming from Tibet, or the Kosi, which is coming from Nepal, or, even within our own country, you have an upper riparian state and a lower riparian state. It is only a certain percentage which is coming from the upper riparian area. Lot of it, in fact, the person who was talking yesterday was saying that Brahmaputra, almost 70% is the rainfall that happens within Assam, and that going into that river. The same way also with, it could be, Kosi or any other rivers. So what is happening is that the flood management, we always like to put the blame on some other place. But if you actually see what is being actually managed within a state or a couple of states, is that natural drainages and natural water holding capacity has been tremendously lost. And they have all been built over, especially in urban areas. Even I'm sitting in Delhi. We have a kind of a dirty nala type of thing, which is behind All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which is close by. And actually, that nala is a river, Savai River. And unfortunately, all the natural drainage area has been completely built over. So what happens is that area near AIIMS is constantly flooded, even if we have sometimes even 20 millimeter rainfall or 30 millimeter rainfall. There are places in Delhi which you can be absolutely sure is flooded, because the natural drainage is going towards natural drainage paths in our country. We have built over with buildings, and on the other hand, we are trying to manage with artificial drains. Now, I know even in Delhi, I know there was a big debate and blame game which happened even in Chennai, when very, very recently, just 2 years back, that, whether those, housing was built on top of water bodies which had been, abandoned several years ago, or was it that the drains were not properly cleaned, and was the drainage adequate or not? So, I know in Delhi that they have replaced extremely large drains in several places in South Delhi and all that. But despite that, the flooding is happening because the amount of rainfall that is happening within a day or in a couple of days is so high that, as against natural drainage systems, which take it to, rivers or, what are called as seasonal rivers, and making it take it away from the city, we are relying on, trying to cope up with the climate change excesses with artificial drain, and which is not sufficient and which is not cleaned, and which is full of silt and full of plastics and everything, that it doesn't go out. So this is something is causing, as I said, in ENSO, an environmental and social events, which is also causing a lot of economic damage. And we have enough data to show that the number of days which are very, very hot, which can actually cause thermal stress and deaths, is definitely increasing and is shifting. We have enough evidence for that. Same way here, this is just to show that even from 2003, when the first this kind of an event happened, extreme weather event, and people were so shocked, and they said that, oh, the Europeans don't know how to take off sweaters, and that's the reason why some of them died and all that. But sorry? Sorry? So that kind of a thing, is no longer valid today. People have been already told, they are experiencing They are aware, but still there is so much of damage that is happening. So as you can see that 2 degrees rise in global temperature will cost the world 1% of the world GDP. And even World Bank has said that will be more like 4% GDP, and to India it will be 5%. So World Health Organization, this is one thing that we use in the health sector. We call it the disability adjusted life years, which is called as DALYs. That is, it is not necessarily only deaths, and it can be also loss of productivity. The amount of number of days the person has to spend in a hospital, the complete loss of movement so that that person can no longer work. So these kind of things also we need to take into consideration, because society and businesses are dependent on, how good the people are. So humans, so coming back to the actual discussion on whether, we need to look at our economic principles, and whether we need to try and see whether there are other ways in which we can live a better life on Earth. You can see that, human beings have an unlimited capacity to consume, but the Earth may not have, which is something that I think even Mahatma Gandhi pointed out, that, the Earth has enough for every man's needs, but not for one man's greed. So that is something that, we don't seem to have understood even after so many years. And, so this is proving to be quite damaging. So sustainability, I think all of us are quite familiar with this kind of definition, to meet the needs of the present generation without compromising the future generations for their needs. We know about it, but none of us practices it. So the Sustainable Development Goals, which was set in 2015, we are supposed to achieve it in 2030, but I don't think almost any part of the world is, with so many wars going on. I mean, I personally feel that, when you are faced with such a big crisis like the climate change, any reason cannot justify wars, leave alone, other types of, activities which we try to justify. Because the kind of impact that global warming and climate change is going to have is something that we really need to understand. So here, as we can see here, we have planetary boundaries. I've very often heard people saying, let's save the Earth. I'm sorry to say, the Earth will save itself. You don't have to worry. Please save yourselves. It is your mankind, humankind that you have to save. You and I can become extinct. Nothing will happen to the Earth. The Earth will find a way of, it has been going on for several billion years. Then you and I will become extinct. It will create another species, several other species, and it will manage. So please remember that, the planet has boundaries. And we have only a certain amount of range. We are warm-blooded animals. We don't have very high ranges of withstanding either very high temperature or very low temperature, or, going without food or water or air for several days and months and all that. We don't have that kind of capacity. We are a fairly, we may be having a good brain and certain motor activities, but otherwise the human species is not really, it's quite fragile. It's quite fragile. And it can easily, if that range changes within which we can exist, changes, we can actually, and also, the amount of discomfort that we will have to go through. So balancing human development and ecological footprint is no longer a choice. I don't think, anybody is saying that, whether you should do it or not. If you don't, it's fine. I mean, you won't be there. That's it. I mean, the human species won't be there. So now people are started to talk about the donut economics. Of course, there are many very well-known institutions, including the LSE and all that, who have been saying that more than just econometrics, we need to also look at the history and how the economic metrics itself needs to be changed. So you can see here in this diagram that there's a small thin donut-like area where you can get food, health, education, income, peace, justice, political, social equity, gender equity, housing, networks, energy, water, everything. And outside that, if you keep putting, you start making the atmosphere into a landfill, then that is also going to affect you. And the shortfall, if it is too little, then it will not become, that will not be adequate for all human beings on Earth or all the biodiversity on which we are dependent. So assessing the climate and sustainability, IPCC, as you know, Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change. They are continuously having. And so the COP28, COP29, all those are occurring. And the overshoot day is basically to say that, how much the Earth can sustain in that one particular year. And we manage to always consume that amount within half the year itself. So the world is continuously in deficit. And as you can see, the ecological footprint, what they call, that is the amount we have consumed and what kind of a footprint we are leaving on the Earth. And so just now they have estimated that the safe space is of the Earth resources is only in this last quadrant, Global Sustainable Development Quadrant. Whereas most of the countries are, I'm sorry. So that kind of a thing, as you can see, is we are completely outside that quadrant. Like David Attenborough has said that there are different models where we can try to change the growth of the planet. So we have one model which is growth. Of course, which everybody talks about, and all nations talk about, all businesses talk about, and even some societies also, they think that this is something that is going to. But you see that even the so-called nations, which supposed to have very, very high GDP, they don't seem to have reached any kind of overall development. They have not reached equity. There are millions and millions of people, who are without the basic necessities of life. So is that model a good model? Then, of course, you have the donut model, which I told you, where you try to adjust that the maximum number of humanity gets at least the basic necessities. Although you may not, have the highest GDP, but at least, you have maximum number of people who are benefited with the basic necessities. The green growth model has been tried in some places. It needs a very, very careful working. It needs, especially from businesses, it needs a lot of innovation. And you need to make the design itself is such, has to be made in such a way that you anticipate that what is it that will be the waste, and is there a way to prevent that waste, or make it available in such a way that it can be used in some other way in the same business or in another business. So, for instance, let's say even simple things like electronic waste. We're talking about manufacturing. But it is a very well-known fact that with all these wars and everything going on, the access to so many very, very important rare earths and rare metals have been jeopardized. And therefore, very, very recently, even the auto industry had to, put all its production on 3 months, 4 months, 6 months waiting, because simple things like in fact, the what they consider as the chips for automobiles, which was what India was wanting to make, is reasonably simple ones compared to the ones which are used in other equipment. But even that was not available. Why? Because there's so much locked up in the e-waste, and which is not available, which is causing excess pollution, and it is actually destroying some of our natural resources. But at the same time, because of very poor design or almost no design, and no innovation, no innovation in the sense that no way to have properly worked out the processes in such a way that it could be easily harvested or recovered and used. So today we are just sitting on a whole pile of this kind of waste. The similar thing about chemicals, similar things about so many other businesses. I'm not talking only about, just because electronic is a sort of a popular thing, I just cited that. Of course, there are some people who are in favor of degrowth, which may not be so viable. So is there a way to decouple growth with the resource consumption? So the only way to do it is, of course, to increase efficiency, to increase design, to anticipate, to really rework the complete processes in such a way that you can actually think that okay, I'm going to be landed with this, and I would have to actually spend more money in trying to just neutralize it and push it into landfills and TSDFs, for which I'll have to pay 20,000 rupees a ton or whatever it is. Instead of that, can I make a process in which that, I'll have to pay less for waste, I'll recover much more, and my process may be compromised a little bit, the expenditure may be more, but in the long run, actually, I may be benefited. So decoupling has not been done very, very effectively as of now, but there is a very big opportunity here. And as resources decline, as you know, things like, all the estimates of metals, even like copper, which we take it for granted, has reduced to such an extent that people have now resorted to even leasing copper instead of actually selling it. So there's a whole, as I said, lot of wasted resources are there. Even food is a highly wasted resource. And then energy is a highly wasted resource. And of course, in terms of the natural resources like water, air, the amount we are spending in trying to clean up what is easily available to us is also a wasted resource. So one has to remember that, I've heard of, I have a basic background in biology. Up till my MSc, I'm a microbiologist. And before that, also I did integrated biology and zoology, botany, chemistry, those kind of things. And I can tell you this much, I've heard vague, things being said, oh, we'll enhance this microbe will do this, and, we'll get back this, and everything will happen in a jiffy. Unfortunately, biological cycles do not match technical cycles. They are, the biological cycles work on enzymes, which can only work at a particular range of temperature. Maybe some amount of enhancement is possible with a certain amount of biochemical engineering and chemical engineering, but that is very, very limited. So, trying to make out as if, all microorganisms and various biological systems are going to help you to keep up with the amount of waste and rubbish that we are putting into our natural resources. Unfortunately, that is not true. It will not work. So there is this concept of circular economy. I'm sure most of you must have heard about it. And it is not so easy as has been made out. And, people keep telling me about how PET bottles are made into fibers and how it is turned into clothes. So what? And what are you going to do with that sweatshirt after 20 washes or 50 washes or 100 washes? What are you going to do with it? Will it degrade? It will not degrade. Will it go back to the earth? No, it will not go back. Even if it goes back, it will become microplastics or microfibers. So, I mean, that is not circular economy. Circular economy is, I'll show you what is circular economy. But I'll probably come to it in a while. So the changing the mindsets to, in a consumption pattern where some amount can be repaired, some amount, like we have completely lost some of those trades which used to repair, maintain. And we have started making deliberately things which are not maintainable, which are even among equipment, even among consumables. We try to make things, what is known as planned obsolescence, which is a ridiculous concept which came during the Industrial Revolution, but we haven't given that up. In India, we used to have people, who would go on cycles and say, can I repair your stove? Can I repair your fan? Can I repair your, something else? Even, cobblers and, people who do small things. And, they run their own businesses, and they also make sure that our material lasts a much longer time. Yes, what is the, okay. So, it is a basic mindset also. And if you think that your business is going to improve because of planned obsolescence, it is like sitting on a branch of a tree and cutting the base of that tree. Because you are going to land up with that kind of a waste. You will be made responsible for that waste. And recovery of your material from that waste will be much more expensive. And so that is what is marketing of an economy, that is not going to work. So we'll have to think of what are the other ways in which we can make our businesses last better. Life cycle approach has been shown to be a very good method. Many businesses have tried to use this and have also benefited from this. So when, you have to have a relationship between zero waste and circular economy, that is what I said, that you have to plan, in such a way that you anticipate that this is the amount that is going to come out. And only certain things like maybe sewage or something like that, that can be treated biologically. And there are many, many things which cannot be just left in a landfill and expected to be acted upon by microorganisms or whatever it is. That is not going to happen. And because there are most microorganisms, at least I have studied, do not have the capacity to, address heavy metals or, persistent organic pollutants and, turn them into energy source or into carbon dioxide and water or something like that. That's not there. It's just not there. And waste we always come to because the linkage between, whether manufacturing or whether processes is very closely linked. So even if we take something as simple as food, that we know that the planet has the components to address it, but we have to aid it. We cannot just throw it and expect that, okay, it will degrade in certain amount of time. By the time it will produce methane, which is also a greenhouse gas, or, just wait for it to degrade slowly. But on the other hand, these are some things where we can, try to enhance, because there the biological systems are available. You aid it and it can definitely work faster. It will reduce the amount of pollution, both in water, air, and soil. And it will actually aid in improving the quality of these resources. So there is a link between waste management and circular economy, although waste management is not the only aspect of circular economy. Circular economy is much bigger and it needs much more thought and much greater innovation. So this is, very typical thing. And I think most people down south, and also, in many places in north where people eat in patals and all that, they know that the whole principle was that, it is easily cleanable, it's hygienic, it's single use, but at the same time, whatever is the leftover, along with the leftover, you can, give it to a cow or a buffalo, and produce dung from it, biogas from it. And, that is really circular, because the product which comes out also is biologically degradable and will go back into earth as carbon dioxide, water, and other minerals, which is required by the earth. So that is, and today everybody says, oh, but in my office, when I have a lunch or a dinner, how do you expect that I will bring plantain leaves or patal or whatever it is? But I've just seen, there are many businesses. Like I was looking for one without plastic, because I've worked extensively in plastic for my MPhil dissertation also. And I found that putting hot food in it is one of the most dangerous things. Although I'm not going to waste my time telling you all about it. That is for another day. But we found that yesterday I was able to locate a business where they were giving packed lunches, but it was not using plastic. I'm not mentioning because I don't want to promote a particular business on this particular talk or anything like that. But what I mean to say, there have been people who have been able to work out this whole thing. So, there are lots and lots of opportunities. So one has to understand the limitations, and I'm sure businesses can definitely, work out what are the methods. So, sorry. So one of the some of the lessons that we require, to really build resilience is that good quality data is very important. Of course, even in terms of floods, it could be that, for instance, I think many of you might have known that there are many places in India where end-to-end early warning systems have been established. One example is, of course, this is not for when you have rainfall, as I said, 1 year rainfall in 1 day or in 2 days or something like that. But for instance, in Surat, for instance, the Tapi River used to flood, and almost every year they used to have problems, and then used to have dengue, malaria, all that kind of problems. But IIT Delhi, IIT Khadak, I think IIT Roorkee, and various others, they helped in estimating the amount of rainfall in Madhya Pradesh, which is the catchment area. And through the Central Water Commission, they worked out an early warning system by which the dam above, on the upper riparian of the Tapi River, which is entering Surat, used to get almost 48 to 72 hours warning. And there, the dam used to be released, the water used to be released in such a way that, there was a causeway and there was no damage and there was no overflow of the river. And so they could do. So this is one of the ways. I mean, what they're going to do with Kosi and Mechi and all, we have to watch and see. A huge amount, 17,500 crores have been given for flood management in that area. But like somebody pointed out, we also need to do a lot of societal resilience. Because, for instance, Brahmaputra also is a river which overflows. Most of our Indian rivers, they work on the overflow system. So how much ever you start, trying to make, what is it called? Making, trying to build walls, along this thing, and beautification of the river and all that, that is not going to work. That is definitely not going to work. In fact, that will cause greater damage to the river. The river has to have floodplains, and you cannot have construction in the floodplains. And the regular, both the Himalayan and the peninsular rivers, they are they have deliberately, they have channels in such a way that alluvium comes out and it deposits all the silt and everything outside in the floodplains, and then it carries much more water in its own channels, and that is how the water gets drained out, and it reduces the flood possibility.
They are
So if
called,
you try to do river development and try to put walls along the rivers, that is not going to work in in countries like India. If you know that most of the Himalayan rivers, they also carry a lot of silt and rocks with them. And so, it would be better that we establish good data systems, end-to-end, early warning systems, rather than try to cage in our rivers and try to, fix them inside little channels, which is not the nature of our rivers. So that is something. Next also is the fact that people in Assam, they are used to making their houses on stilts. Whereas, the entire Kosi problem is a relatively newer problem, relatively. But the Bihar has never built houses on stilts. So maybe we have to think about whether those kind of things need to be brought in. So effective use of technologies, and then also a database in such a way that the neighborhood is also able to understand. You remember during the COVID times, how neighborhood management helped in, containing the infection. So communication is very, very important, and identification of hotspots. Um, of course, don't talk about Delhi, how we had flooding. East Rajendra Nagar was always identified as a hotspot, despite that, the canal was not cleaned and we had flooding and poor students lost their life. So it's also effectiveness of how we use that communication. So the another lesson you can say is that local government, we have the 74th Amendment, but unfortunately, the Mohalla committees or the sub-ward committees or the RWAs, nothing has been strengthened. So it is, and except in some very good states, the 23 functions have not been devolved to the local governments. Barely 18 functions are devolved. So the local government is completely dependent on state governments, and state government may or may not allot funds to a particular city. It all depends on whether they got enough from the central government. And then there's a whole hodgepodge. And each people blaming the local governments, blaming the industry blaming civil society. And so this kind of a thing is not going to work. So, I mean, I'm just giving an example. You may agree with me. Singapore, for instance, the Singapore River was cleaned up by the local people, along with the help of the local city administration, no doubt. But it was a people's movement, and the industry, and even in a place like Surat and all that, if you go and see, it is the industry association which contributed tremendous amount during, for building that resilient program. Of course, this year, nothing has worked in Surat, and it was also half underwater because of very, very heavy precipitation. But I'm just saying that there are instances in many parts of the world and even in our country where local governments, along with industry and civil society, have been able to create better living spaces. And most important thing, the citizens are equal partnerships for partners of resilience. Not only inform, but also consult and collaborate. And without the help of proper networks and citizen participation, it is not going to work. Of course, these are just examples of how to show that roads have become almost like borders. You cannot cross the road, so you don't know what is happening on the other side of the road. So Rahagiri and movements like this have helped people come together and at least talk to each other. And of course, sustained behavioral change, educating, training, especially schools and, colleges, and bring not only just bringing awareness, but involving them in sustainable development and building resilience. and even teaching children how to be safe in their own environment. These are places in Coimbatore, I think, through exhibitions and through various types of women's self-help groups, training programs for even sanitary, and because they are the first responders. Remember that the municipal corporation, municipality, in a village level area, panchayat, and nagarpalikas, they are the first responders. So unless we do adequate training for them and really give them a protocol, it's not going to help us. What has happened? It's not going. I think I'll just escape it. I'm just escaping. Stop sharing for a minute. Meanwhile, are there any questions? Up till now, yeah, now it has started working. So should I just continue? Am I doing okay, Mr. Gopi? What do you think?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Go on. Please go on, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm back to share. And yeah, and this is now the full screen. I don't know whether it's come now. Yeah, now it's working. So these are again examples of how women self-help groups and others can also be involved. So introducing resilience measures. One is, of course, you really have, it's time that you started looking at green infrastructure. So, one is, of course, I've just taken the example of a healthcare industry, but this applies to almost any industry. So you need to, you can examine using green material, technology, landscaping, trying to find locations which are much safer, even in terms of, whether it is heat or precipitation or any other impact that you are expecting. Also smart buildings, fire resistance. So sometimes you can have fire even because of extreme heat. And then, of course, water conservation. It is better that we start looking at the fact that, any facility, whether any industry or whatever it is, can get isolated. So do you have provisions for rainwater harvesting, adequate infrastructure for storing, even things like STP, ETP, biodigester, and a proper water conservation plan? Because you might get isolated for several days. And what will you do if you don't have, water? The same way with energy conservation, there are now many, possibilities of having decentralized energy generation. So have you looked at it? Have you thought about it? Is there any way that you can include that in your program? Not just because, you want to get yourself rated as a green industry or whatever it is, but also for your own safety. It's also part of resilience. So here, we have tried to show a district healthcare facility. There is a Bijapur even in Chhattisgarh, not just in Karnataka. So, which has made itself kind of somewhat resilient, that in case, they cannot access electricity from grid, they are able to generate their own electricity. And you might have heard about boat clinics in Assam. Earlier, they used to have a lot of problems because even though they were giving very, very good service to several villages and, small islands on the rivers and very remote areas, but they used to have this problem about diesel and noise and all that. And they were able to overcome it to a certain extent through solarization. And so for that, you need to make very good estimation. So that is the next part. That is, when you want to do energy conservation or you want to do energy resilience, most important thing is you need to estimate as to what are the things. Like, for instance, we did this for a hospital. So how much, energy is required? We found that 43% is is for healthcare sector is the largest consumer for heating and cooling and various purposes like that. And then about 21% is for lighting, and then for various other functions. So if you have an estimate, apparently one of my friends was saying that she was asking, why is it that in United States solarization or solar energy is not such a big thing, even in places like California. And apparently they said that because our electricity consumption is so high for heating and cooling and central air conditioning and all that, that, solar energy is not sufficient for us. But in a country like India, we can really look at it, whether we can do a proper estimation and whether we can really find out how much of it can we really get from solarization and various other sources, because that's not the only source. There are different sources, and some electricity generated from solar energy may be suitable for certain functions, and for certain functions we can possibly use other sources. So here this is a solar operated water cooler, in a place which is high temperature, and where it was mandatory to cool the water. So there are possibilities that you can use this, and this can also be used for food industries, where you want to for easily perishable items. So is there ways of in which you can create cold storage or various other facilities using these kind of decentralized electricity energy generation units? Of course, cleaning and maintenance is a part of it. Then also the other thing that you can try and look at is submetering. So, if you feel that even in your industry, there are, when you do energy audit, you find that a particular location is consuming much more. Whether you would like to use submetering so that, you can put in greater emphasis of conservation in those areas rather than, all pervasive. And so training programs are very, very important, and encouraging staff to switch off devices. This some of you may be already doing, because it also makes good economic sense. But in case you are not doing this, is a time when submetering and training and education you might want to look at. And also look at energy consuming equipment. Sometimes, some equipment are highly energy consuming and inefficient. So do you want to look at other things which are available? Maybe replacement calls for investment, but whether it will be of use. Again, the same thing with water, as I said, now, earlier we were only talking about surface water availability, surface water pollution. Today, I my PhD student and I worked, and we found that areas 5 kilometers radius of any kind of a landfill, whether it's a dump site or any hazardous waste landfill which is not properly maintained, there's very high pollution of groundwater. And Central Pollution Control Board itself has also produced a zone map to show how many more than 100 rivers in our country, and the zones around it are highly polluted. And, how do you clean up groundwater, which has got heavy metals, and, how do you do that? There's no way to actually do that. So as NIUA, we also looked at, what are the kind of basic amenities, because, the pollution of water is not happening only because of industries. It is also happening because of urban population. It's also happening because of sewage. It's also happening because of untreated waste matter that is being put. So we also looked at, how much coverage that has actually happened. We found that water supply in many urban areas has improved tremendously. But even after Swachh Bharat, the sanitation, especially the treatment of the sewage and the septage, that has not happened to the adequate or optimum extent that we expected, and which is what we really need to focus on. because we cannot keep on drawing from groundwater resources, especially if that is also becoming polluted, for supplying water if we do not look after the water, which can easily be, because most of us look at human excreta and animal excreta as a resource. It can be actually treated and used as manure if it is not mixed with industrial chemicals. Therefore, why is it being allowed to pollute water is a very big question. So that's a very big opportunity for any industry which wants to get into it. And also Jal Jeevan Mission, we looked at, as I told you, Amrit is only for those 500 cities. And that itself is, consuming a huge budget. And, just getting a sewage network. So that is the reason why most cities are now going for, septic tanks and fecal sludge treatment programs, because it is not possible for India to achieve complete underground sewerage even in 100 years. So we have to look at other options. So that is another opportunity for industry where they want to get into. Access to sanitation definitely has shown improvement after the Swachh Bharat, both 1 and 2. But we still, as I said, have a lot of untreated wastewater. Drainage, as I told you, is not been sufficient, not adequate. It is, there's a big deficit in several states, and especially some of the northeastern states and, some of the other states also. The deficit is not been covered adequately. Here again, the septage, this is what I said. So here there is a very big opportunity for any people, because there is adequate amount of knowledge and technology available on how to, isolate the septage, how to take it to a fecal sludge treatment plant, how to construct one, how to create resource out of it, how to actually sell the manure and also the treated water. So this is something that, industries can look at, and it is completely can be a circular economy, because this is 100% treatable resource. So here also in, small healthcare establishments, which are less than 10 beds, 20 beds, 30 beds, we have been able to, make equipment which function as ETPs. Because, we have looked at their trade effluent, we looked at what is the kind of chemicals that they actually use, what are the neutralization methods. So here again, there is a huge possibility for innovation. And you can see that, they are also giving fairly good results. Air, as I said, we have been talking about, air pollution for ages. And only thing is electric vehicles, there's a very big debate because it uses the electricity from thermal power plants. We don't know what to do with the batteries, unless, we really plan it out as to how that battery will be dismantled. Of course, there is a certain amount of technology available. I'm not denying that. And people in the EV sector are doing very well. But still, there is a huge gap there, and people need to work on that. So the climate change mitigation means, how to reduce greenhouse gases. Disaster mitigation means that how can we reduce the damage to ourselves, and how can we create co-benefits. So when we reduce GHG emissions, especially in terms of air pollution, it is happening simultaneously, because many of the gases and emissions which create climate change are also harmful to humans. So if you reduce that, you're reducing climate change impact, and also you're reducing the impact on your own health. So we talk about co-benefits. So co-benefits is again a very huge sector, which can be very usefully, adopted as an industry. Adaptation is the same thing, you can say, is a precursor for resilience. So first you have the adaptation means you're sure that climate change is already happening. It's already started to happen. But how do we change our lifestyle? How do we change ourselves to adapt to it? That is what is called adaptation. So preparedness And then if we are going to have ecological refugees, migrations, how are we going to manage that? Then increased surveillance to safeguard, emergency plans, and also control. Most important thing is that many industries are still using very highly, very poor combustion fuels and all that, which definitely can be reduced, which will help in reducing air pollution, reducing climate change effect, and it will also create better health for the workers and for the community as a whole. So in the waste management sector, how much time do we have, Mr. Gopi? Can I go on for another 5-10 minutes? Or
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please go on. Please go on.
so since I'm familiar with the waste management sector, I just thought I'll just say that, what are the things that, is possible. Of course, this is the linear method that you collect the waste and you dump it, which we are still doing in many of our cities. But in that, only the informal waste pickers are only able to take out 15 to 20%, not more than that. Whereas in the circular way of doing waste management, you can actually recover up to 80-85% within a household or within a community or within a city itself. So that is what we are going to look at. And why is it that it's important? These dump sites are a big source of methane. Methane is 28 times got the potential of, of carbon dioxide. So whenever you allow, organic matter to rot and by itself degrade, it will give out methane. And that is, you're actually creating a greater impact. So that is the way the dump sites are so dangerous. And now they have become a talking point even also in the COPs, in the Conference of Parties. So there are also they also are responsible for emitting other gases because methane is highly inflammable. So when it is there in a dump site, it will start burning by itself. And it will burn all the recyclables, even batteries, even paints, even pesticides, and all that will go up in the air. So that is the reason why, methane is so dangerous, especially in dumping organic matter in a dump site or even in a landfill. So what happens is that this is something that nobody wants. The householder doesn't want to keep it because they say that it is stinking. It's the role of the municipality. We are paying taxes. This is the kind of answers that we get. And, I don't know, I just would like to share one particular data with you that most of the ULBs that we have looked at, I'm not saying all ULBs, but most of the ULBs that we have looked at in India, they are not even meeting their revenue expenditure, the revenue that they earn, even up to 50%. So you think that, ULB is going to be able to manage because of your taxes. That is not happening. The taxes are bare minimum. The tax, the property tax, the fines and advertisements are barely meeting 50% of the revenue expenditure of a ULB. Whether it is mismanagement or whatever it is, corruption and all those kind of things, I'm not saying, but this is what we have looked at, actual revenues. And therefore, these kind of things where you need to put actual technologies and look at segregation at source, there, the citizen has to participate. Just saying that, we are doing this, we are doing that is not sufficient. Of course, there are many ways, where we can manage the landfills in a better way. So we have also found that methane is also being generated, not only from the dump sites, the waste sector is almost 11%. So it
Madam,
is
what is UIB?
and it's also coming from sewage and also some part of agriculture. So it is very, very crucial to bring down methane in our dump sites and landfills. And this is again a very good sector where, where the biological cycles are aiding you. And this is something where the businesses can really look at their own organic matter. They can also look at the cities or the rural areas organic matter, where the emission intensity, we have already committed. Our country has committed to it, and we are bound to do this. So this is my house, and this is how I do it. I just separate all the wet waste. I have a composter in my balcony. Now I'm in the ground floor, so I have it in my veranda. And I have been having this composter for the past 10 years, and that's it. I mean, so 50% or more than 50% of my waste, whatever I generate, is taken care of completely inside my house. We try to do this in Gurugram also, in Nirvana country. And we have done it in at least, I think there are more than 80 housing societies in Gurugram which are doing it. May not be doing all 6 aspects. They may be doing 3, they may be doing 4. But I know that, there are many housing societies and multi-story buildings which are doing it. So this is in Nirvana country. As you can see that they have a small drum-like equipment. So they segregate and then they make their own compost and then they use it for their landscaping. And then they are also, dry waste collection is going on where the waste collector takes it. So why source segregate? It is all very understood. In India, we have done estimation in all parts of the country, including Northeast, and it is more than 50% organic biodegradable matter which comes out of your kitchen or your garden is definitely more than 50%. Even in Delhi, it is 57 to 62%. And also, so if you take care of that, and then automatically the dry waste recyclable ones are taken by the waste collectors. And that is another 18 to 20%. So 80%, 85% of your problem is sorted out. That's what I meant. Today, only 15% is being sorted out. And what we are achieving through this mechanism is 85%. So then you can focus on, what to do with the domestic hazardous waste, whether the home healthcare waste, like how we did during COVID, can be sent to a common biomedical waste facility, how many of the chemicals that we are using, that can be neutralized and only that can be put into secured landfills. All that can be done if you source segregate. So this is a summary, as a pictorial representation of the solid waste management rules 2016. So wet biodegradable, separated, you can either compost or do biomethanation or do both, and you can earn revenue. Dry recyclables, which are marked as recyclables, which are safe to recycle, so they can be separated. They can go to their own respective industry, and that can help in also generating revenue. Domestic e-waste and hazardous waste, as I told you, there is plenty of scope for e-waste, and now e-waste rules are there. The e-waste recycling has been fairly well described. There may be good industries which are doing it. There are many informal industries which are not doing it properly. Yes, it's a big challenge, but there is a very big scope in that. Domestic healthcare waste, we recently did a policy brief under in International Labour Organization for Pune. And we have worked out a full roadmap. And we have, of course, exchanged, I took a whole year in presenting it to different stakeholders. And the Pune Municipal Corporation and the Common Biomedical Waste Facility, the e-waste facility operator, everybody was with us. And we have been constantly presenting it and looking at what are the ways in which Pune is again a city where a lot of decentralized organic waste management is already happening and recyclables are being recovered. Domestic construction and demolition waste in Delhi, we have a few recycling plants, which is a good opportunity. 95% recovery is possible. And of course, investment is there. But like many of the waste management rules, the ULB and the revenue department is mandated to give you land at a reasonably, concessional rate. So, there is a buyback. The municipal corporations are trying to use it for sidewalks and for curbstones and for culverts and various other purposes, even for road construction and all that. And sand, which is a very valuable resource, is being recovered. The mud is being used for landscaping. So this is again a very big opportunity, very big opportunity. Of course, with a certain amount of investment, but I'm told that it has got a reasonable payback period. And of course, the most important thing is motivation of young people, how to get them in, how to use them for assessing, making surveys, training. Here you can see this is a new Moti Bagh. This is very GPRA. What is it's a government colony where there are about 1,000 households and senior bureaucrats and judges and all are living. So there's a a particular waste management facility within that compound, and it is being they use vehicles to bring the segregated wet waste. They are doing tray composting and simple use of microorganism powders and simple grinding and putting it into this is also the horticulture waste because they are in a 100-acre plot. So 110 acres or something. So they get a lot of horticultural waste. There also they are making pellets, selling it to boilers and things like that. Brick kilns. They are even selling it to many kitchens which are using pellets. This is another redevelopment area also in Delhi, the East Kidwai Nagar, where they have tried to use a biomethanation plant along with a composting. That is the slurry which comes out. So this is what I was trying to say. The biogas is being converted, some part of it, into electricity. They found that there was a cycle mismatch, so they could not necessarily use all of it for lighting their basement, their parking, but they managed to use it for recharging their EVs and various other. So, innovation is always to be looked at. So they used it for street lighting inside the complex. Again, the East Kidwai Nagar has got 25,000 households. So, a big population. So, there is always technology and using, as you can see, the recyclables are separated and sold. So they also have a decentralized STP in the East Kidwai Nagar. So here also they are able to, they are using simple, I think, SBR technology, and they are able to use the human excreta because it is completely separated. There is no industry inside the East Kidwai Nagar housing complex. So they are recovering it almost 99%. And the treated wastewater is also used for landscaping. And the compost is, of course, used. This is Bangalore. Here also, this is one of the places where I started work, and segregation has been going on. Collection of dry recycle bills have been going on. DWCCs and MRFs have been going on. One of the first cities which started doing, and domestic hazardous waste. One of the first cities which started to separate it and give it to the common biomedical waste facility. I have designed and run a common biomedical waste facility in Gulbarga in Karnataka for 15 years. And it is still running. We gave it to another organization. And I was even able to patent an equipment. So that is a very big possibility there. And plastic pollution, that's what I was trying to say, that this is an area. Please don't try to be taken away by people, who say that this is circular economy and all that. Plastic is just like any other material. It's good for some things. It's not good for everything. And it is not recyclable. The recycling itself is so toxic. I can, spend a whole day telling you about what are the different types of plastic and what happens and what comes out and, what harm it can do. But I'm not going to do that now. So even in the just simple extraction up to the cycle part of it, the plastic recycling is, only leading to final microfibers and microplastics. We have looked at it in great detail. That's one of the reasons why the Intergovernmental Panel for negotiations for plastic treaty is going on. Right from extraction onwards, it's quite a highly polluting. And of course, the countries which are into petroleum and refining and all that will never accept it, including India. But the fact of the matter is that it is an unsustainable industry. So I remember, this movie called Graduate. I don't know how many of you saw it. That fellow tells him that, remember plastics, this is where the future is. Unfortunately, probably that was the biggest mistake that people thought, and that from 1950s onwards, we have been able to pollute the whole earth with this particular material. And of course, plastics is of different categories. Tamil Nadu seems to be doing a reasonably good job of having a sustainable plastics policy, but we are still looking at whether they have been able to really implement it with compostable plastics and how far they have been able to go in segregating. Bangalore again, this is how the even a housing society is able to separate its waste. And here also in Delhi, we are trying to do air quality monitoring in many of the waste depots, that allows it. They are in very bad shape. We are trying to recommend as to, what are good MRFs. This is one in Gita Colony, which we have been looking at. So the Center for Chronic Disease Control, we are doing our best to create a proper policy direction for waste management in Delhi. And we recommend very strongly that at least this should be put into operation. Minimum is the single-use plastic should be completely eliminated. And there are many issues in front of the International Negotiation Committee, which is happening. The last one is scheduled in Busan this year in November. And there are other small and medium enterprises which can be done using reuse. This is, of course, Mangalam Madam might have talked to you about it. She was, we started in Solan and in Coorg and all that, but Mangalam Madam just took it to a certain different level. She did a wonderful job. And of course, this is our unit in Coorg, which is also doing training, different types of products. You can also make, cottage industry products with like, fruit, hay waste, and simple things like multi-layered plastics. And there are people in Delhi, who are pressing the multi-layered plastics and making boards, which can be used as park furniture, and it can be used as also as planters and various other things. And of course, there is a whole lot of plastic industry which is also making granules. The only thing I found is all the HDP, LDP granules are highly contaminated because they are using even containers of pesticides and mobile oils and lube oils, and the remains of that remains in the granules. But it can be used with a thin veneer to cover it for structurals. And then, of course, there are organizations, where we are trying to work with NGOs who are giving a lot of livelihoods and, who are making reuse. Textiles is another area where a lot of it is landing up in the waste. So reuse of that, and then making floral, like things like colors and incense sticks. So that is again a circular economy that one can look at. And then again, this is many challenges that they face. Of course, roads, a certain amount. It's not that everything can be used, but they have looked at how to do the, using it in the sub-base of the roads to increase. Indian Institute of Petroleum in Dehradun, we are working very closely with them. And they have been able to make diesel from waste plastic. Not, of course, PVC and polystyrene and all, but other kind of HDP, LDP, polypropylene, all those kind of things. And this is another project that is looked at because earlier projects were highly polluting. So IIP has been able to get, there are others also, IICT in Hyderabad and several others have also got patents. This is in, again, New Moti Bagh, how they have set it up for localized plastic, but it's not really giving them any revenue as such. It's just that helping them to get a little bit of biogas for their tea. So this is what I meant. The IIPA is making structurals by pressing some of the waste plastics and reusing it as walls and various other things. E-waste, I think most of you must be already knowing, and you might be part of that sector also. And we have already talked about, home healthcare waste, how it got an impetus during the COVID time, and we can continue it. So we are also working on all the various neutralization processes of the various home domestic hazardous waste that come from kitchen and furniture and toilet cleaning and those kind of things also. So that even sanitary products, when we went to Pune, we realized that even sanitary napkins and diapers, there is an organization called Pad Care, which is made this innovation that they put these containers in offices and various hotels and all that, and they have been able to, so they have been able to do it just now only for sanitary pads, not for adult diapers and for children's diapers because of human excreta. But the blood, they are able to remove 200 ml. They do have an ETP. They separate the cellulose and plastics, and again plastics are pressed and made into structurals, whereas the cellulose is reused for making paper. So also this whole industry on biodegradable sanitary napkins. This is you will be surprised what a huge percentage this occupies in the landfills. I wish I could take you all and show you what a mess it has created. And, and of course, there is a huge industry now coming up with biodegradable compost plants. Even in rural areas, we are trying to see what are the composting methods which will help, in what are the ways in which we can enhance it, and also in class 1 cities and towns. And the most important thing we have to also realize is that we have to work with the sanitation workers. And we are finding that, of course, there are many organizations, NSKFDC and all, who are working. But this is an area where, even though last year's budget, some amount was given for second tier 2 and tier 3 cities. But we find that even in cities like Trivandrum or various other cities, we are experiencing that the accessibility to the funds for equipment or even for the bandicoot, which was made, which can do underground cleaning of sewers, it's not so easily available. So this is something that we really need to look at. And of course, we have then said that finally there can be an integrated common solid waste facility, which, for secured landfilling of the treated solid waste. So thank you very much. I don't know whether I met your expectations, but, we can always discuss. I just try to put a few perspectives. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. Excellent session. So we'll just keep the floor open for question and answers. Participants, you may please unmute and ask your questions quickly.
Madam, can you please share me your number?
Yes, I can put it.
We will share it. We will share it.
Yeah, here Mr. Gopi has. Mr. Anil has his hands up. Mr. Anil Goswami.
Yeah,
Would
please
you
go
like
on,
to
sir.
ask, sir?
Yes, Shyamala,
Yes,
you are
sir.
too good.
Thank you so
Excellent,
much.
excellent session, Gopi. Gopi ji,
Yes,
we
sir.
need from Shyamala at least 3-day session. So 3-day workshop, we need it.
We'll do that, sir. We'll do that, sir. We'll
She is
arrange
a
one
knowledge,
shortly.
she is a knowledge wealth in herself. Huge knowledge here.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, I salute you. I am also from Gurgaon, DLF, I am Gurgaon, DLF.
Thank you so much, sir. So kind of you.
Thank you very much.
Madam, you mentioned the term UIB in the presentation. Why UIB?
I see. What was it in relation? I might have forgotten.
I think it's connected with the recycling, and maybe it's a viability issue or something like that.
I see. I'll have to. Let me just share it again, and let me just share it again. Let me just see. Okay. Do you remember whether it was towards the beginning or somewhere in the middle, or
In the medium portion regarding this, viability issue of recycling, I think it came up.
okay. Some of it is not moving. Somewhere here, you think, or even earlier?
Earlier.
Earlier. Somewhere here, somewhere here.
No, some more backward it is.
Maybe here, somewhere.
Actually, yeah, I mean, no, not here, some more forward actually.
Forward meaning earlier, earlier,
No, forward.
forward. Okay. After this,
Yeah, I mean, in this portion, I think it came up, right somewhere here.
okay. So, or you could just, Mr. Gopi has my email ID.
Yeah.
You could send me what is that particular term.
Yeah,
That
yes.
and I can reply separately to
I
you.
mean, we were talking about plastics in that domain, I think.
Okay, plastics. Okay. Yeah, plastics.
You told that the UIB is not something which is viable or something like that. You told.
See, we are in plastic pollution now,
Right.
and did you mean UIB? No, I don't think I use that term. SUP, single-use plastic? No.
No. It was something other than that. I mean, you can share me. You can tell me regarding the general. Problem that this recycling segment is facing. Maybe.
So see, the thing is that you see what happens is that in recycling, like for instance, suppose we look at this. Okay, now here this is the plastic recycling here. So what they do is that they just they melt it and then they extrude it. Like for instance, suppose you have a HDP or a LDP or a polypropylene container, they will, along with other containers of the same kind of plastic, they will shred it. Then they'll put it in a hopper. Then they will try to melt it at a certain temperature, 120, 130, 150 degrees. And then they extrude it in the form of thin strings, underwater. Then they cut it. And that is called as granulation. That is how they make the granules. And then they use the same granules either for blow, either by blowing and making bags or bottles, or they use it for manufacturing, again melt it and make some kind of toys or tiffin boxes or children's water bottles or your bucket or kodam or something like that. So the unfortunate part is that because there are many substances which are stored in these containers, former containers, like, it could be petroleum-based pesticides, paints, then it can be fertilizers, can be mobile oil, it can be, various substances which are petroleum-based. What we noticed was that when it is stored in the particular plastic, it enters the plastic because like dissolves like. It goes and enters and it becomes a part of that hydrocarbon. So when you recycle it, what we noticed was that hydrocarbon which was stored in it has become part of that plastic. And when we looked at the recycled product, like a kodam or a tiffin box or child's water bottle or a toy, we found that we were able to detect. So I did this experiment in IITR in Lucknow, and also in Shriram Institute in Delhi and all that. And we found that those very toxic molecules were present in that plastic, and it was leaching even at room temperature, neutral pH. And therefore, what is the safety? If a child is using a water bottle made out of recycled plastic, or a person is using shampoo out of a recycled container. So, some amount, because you're not absolutely keeping track whether the recycling is happening only with, that same product. So if you go and see the informal plastic recycling industry in Delhi, I can take you. You will find that, all HDPE containers are mixed. Sometimes they try to segregate it according to color. Some lightly colored and some darkly colored and all that. Lightly colored, they will put some, in fact, they use colors which are not batch colors. So they will be having cadmium, chromium, lead, all those kind of things. So that is another additive. Plus, if it is, polycarbonate and all, they might be even adding some flame retardants. And if it is a polypropylene, HDPE, LDPE, they may not add additives, but colors are all highly toxic. So, and plus the hydrocarbon which has remained from the previous cycle. So that way, and if you just put water, even in normal pH neutral water with normal temperature, we were able to get leachates. And I did a thin layer for chromatography, and I was able to get so many toxins from it. That's what I was trying to say, that it is only getting micro at the end of it also, even after several cycles of recycling, it doesn't degrade, or it only photo degrades and then becomes microplastics and microfibers, which is that then in water bodies, and then finally they end up in the ocean and inside the fish. And now they're saying that it's all inside our bodies and all those kind of things.
Yeah,
That's what
yes.
I mean.
Heard of that issue, madam.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. That is the
I
whole.
mean, you said you had a patent in this biomedical waste management.
Yeah, there's that is basically the healthcare waste sharps, which is like the needles. So what they are supposed to do is that they are supposed to, that white container, they are supposed to separate the syringe from the needles, and also the blades and suture needles and cannula needles and all that. So when I was running the common facility, we had this problem that we didn't have any technology to address that. So I got it fabricated in such a way that we use dry heat sterilization. That has now been accepted. That is there in the rules now. And so mutilation. So it combines mutilation and dry heat sterilization, and also captures the plastic hubs, because there's a certain amount of plastic which is stuck to the needles and all that. So that is also, condensed and removed. And therefore we get sterilized, mutilated metals, and which can be sent to foundries, or you can even do, there's a certain particular way of doing what do you call it, deep burial. So I've not only got a patent, now I've got a DST grant for making it, because what we made was what is called as the pre-prototype. So now we have been able to get some grant for making prototypes, different categories, for small hospitals, large hospitals and all that, common facilities and all. And I hope sometime, commercialization also is possible. I have an industry partner. And also the IIP, CSIR IIP, Dehradun is helping in the plastics and all those things. So it is not meant for the syringes. It is not meant for the plastic healthcare waste. It's only meant for metal sharps. Did I answer your question?
Oh, it's very nice presentation, but I'm Dean in Engineering College. It is very important for every student, every community. Is it possible to include in the syllabus in the +2 level?
Yes, sir. Actually,
the content. If it is then it is really beneficial.
See, the only thing is that these days, they under the NEP, you can look at whether states, because under NEP, states have also been given a certain amount of.
Or we can add in the NPTEL course also. Is it possible?
Yes. I would say so. I think that would be.
So you can pressurize UGC and AICT in all arts and engineering colleges and everyone, because
Correct.
it's communal, all the community should know, all the people should know.
Correct.
But you have presented very well in all the aspects. That is very nice.
Thank you so much.
Not only in the higher side, on all to top to bottom. But one thing is, remember, we cannot control the other issues, either pollution or anything. But we can concentrate on how to prevent. That is the issue. There is no other goal, because we cannot prevent even one person. But we can control, or we can have prevention. We can take action. How in the corona, what we have only for protection. Same thing we can think about all the sides of how to protect our sides in all the issues.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, thank you very much, madam. Thank you. Very nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, participants, please unmute and ask your questions, please.
Yeah, very good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, Subhadra, please go on.
Yeah,
good afternoon.
Very glad connecting to you. And madam, it was an excellent presentation, and we all really have got a lot of inspiration from you. Thank you, ma'am. Myself, I'm actually from Coimbatore. I'm talking to you. We have a firm, PVR Foods, and we are into the manufacturing of value-added millet products. I have two different questions to you. One is about, you must be knowing now this idli dosa batter, these pouches and all, so much as good as like milk everybody is using. So how these pouches like milk or anything of this FMCG kind of a product which is being used in day-to-day basis, how this could be given for recycling, or is there any kind of a special process is there? Or whether I thought we can have a buyback of those pouches. By the way, we can collect them and do that recycling, something like that. I'm really thinking, is there any such opportunity which you can give some thought process for us? One. Question number two is about while producing this dosa batter in which we are exclusively specialized with millet dosa batters in the brand name of Dhanyam. And maybe gallons of water, including that materials, that is whatever we grind, while we washing those, specialized machines like grinders or blenders or whatever. So every day we undergo thorough washing. So we get a lot of that sediment particles of those millet grains. So how this could be processed? Because in a day or two, it will become fermented and you will get all the worms and all that. So of course, we have some wastewater and management and things like that. Is there any useful form we can convert it where it can be reutilized as such, instead of, splitting, separating and all that? Whether this could be used as a of course, cattle feed could be one option. Otherwise, we can dilute it and give it for farming because it is such a nutritive water. So, I have such thought process, but I want some clarity from you, ma'am. Thank you.
No, both are very good questions. One is, of course, the plastic, the container, that you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, I think a buyback is a very good possibility. I don't know whether, as I said, you could, you have tried to look at whether it can be, the container, the packaging.
Yeah, packaging pouches.
Packaging pouches. Is it very thick? Is it like a thick?
Yeah, it is all about 95 micron thickness, ma'am. Whatever the pouches, we are using.
Correct. Yeah. So that definitely, you can take back. But the problem is that, in food grade, the biggest issue is, when you recycle, you will not get food grade. You see, what we noticed was that even LDP or LLDP, that is, low density polyethylene, which is very often used for this kind of packaging.
Yes,
it has a tendency that after the first recyclate, the depolymerization happens because of thermal processes. and
Okay.
because of ductility and, pulling and pushing and all that kind of thing. So you can only use it for something lower, it's downcycling, it happens. And if you try to use, what that Coca-Cola method, what they are saying is, upcycling in such a way that you can use it for beverage to beverage, like packaging to packaging, then again, you're generating a lot of waste. And that waste, sorry? So that waste is again, like you were saying, you will have to, give it to somebody. And again, so you're generating a certain amount of waste. So is that you can look at two possibilities. In Tamil Nadu, they are looking at compostable plastics. Whether any of the compostable plastics are good enough for that kind of packaging that you are trying to use. You can look at it because in Tamil Nadu especially, because it started a little earlier, they have been able to go, whether they are making 95 micron thickness, I'm not very sure, but you can look for it. I think there might be a possibility. And then you can also do buyback because I heard that even these compostable plastic, they need a certain amount of industrial composting. So don't leave it completely in the hands of the consumer. You can ask them, that deposit system or some other way, buyback or MRF buyback systems, that is also being tried. And then you can give it to the industrial composting facilities. So the other thing I can say is, like, I'm also a Tamilian. I am also addicted to dosa vada, idli very much.
Okay.
And I know what is the difference between, the semi-solid batter and the powder. But you can, look at whether there is a possibility of increasing the, the quality of dehydrated, like making it into a powder in such a way
Powder. Okay.
that, you can say that, addition of this much amount of water.
Ma'am,
will
we are also doing the powder-based, dosa mixes. But
Okay.
the thing is, my learning and understanding with some R&D with CFTRI, while soaking and grinding, we are making a higher amount of retention of nutrient of the millet grains rather than getting into a pulverizer where your pulverizer RPM is more than 3000 RPM. Where if it is a grinder, it will be hardly between 70 to 90 RPM. And so it's a stone based and it is as good as like your cold pressed oil, why you are using it.
Correct.
So this nutrient retention is comparatively high when you go on a wet batter.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you on that. But the only thing is that we can look at also the possibility of vending machines. There are lots of, for instance, can you imagine, your and mine and all our milk, especially the homogenized milk, which we call as button pal, is through a vending machine. We are taking our equipment. We are taking our own. So is there, like you can create a franchisee where, there can be, those kind of depot, those kind of depots.
Yeah, I did a small try in Bangalore once that we made it before pandemic situation and collecting keeping batter in one point and we made them to get two vessels like a Took Madri. So they come and give that old one and get the collecting new one with the prior booking and things like that.
Absolutely.
But it is it was implementable in a very small quantity for a very limited customer. But when you go with the batter segment, I think it is something in volumes we have to sell and production should also be that way. Then only it is a viable project. So in that case, it has a challenge and people will not have time. Actually, they wanted everything to be home delivered. And let us see how this could be implemented.
I completely agree with you. But, you can start trying, you see, in places where, especially Coimbatore, has got a certain level of awareness. So you can start trying it in some, some locations, where you feel that the awareness is high. Because what happens is, when you talk to the citizens, they say, oh, there is no facility available. When you talk to the supplier says, no, the citizens are not available. So somewhere there is a gap. You know,
Yeah.
you can just imagine the entire country, not just you and I, are running on this, you know, of course, milk is available in sachets also, in pouches also. But there is a huge percentage of people who are taking, you know, tuk or dolce or whatever it is and fetching their own milk also.
Yeah.
So that is
Yeah.
also happening. What I mean to say is, whether I know that, you know, see, that is government run and that is highly subsidized and that is probably got a, you know, infrastructure backing. I do
Yeah.
agree. And, you know, we as small and medium enterprises, we become a little
Startup.
challenged.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
But, you know, if you use NGOs, you know, to find out which are the locations where, you know, people will be, especially I know cities like Coimbatore or, you know, Bangalore or some other places, you know, where awareness is much higher. This kind of a thing could be tried. You know, there are people like in Pondicherry, there are places where you have to take your own little, you know, containers, and they don't give you even your dal and rice and everything. They get it in their own containers and bring it, which is what we used to do, you know, 50 years ago, when we used to take our own bags for various things. So it is a little dicey, but your second question about the, you know, the you can just have the BOD tested, because I don't think, like you said, it can definitely be used as cattle feed, and definitely, you know, the washings are full of nutrition, and you can also, you know, whoever is doing home composting, they can easily, you know, it's as long as they don't make it very liquidy, they can definitely use it off. It can even be used, if it is diluted, it can even be directly put in, you know, pots and plants. There is absolutely nothing harmful in it. So whether it is millet based or whether it is rice based or dal based, I don't think there will be any problem at all. It can be diluted and easily directly added to plants. And, you know, yeah, so that is what I suggest, that, you know, that will be the least cost.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Very
You're
glad
welcome.
connecting to you, ma'am. I'll take
Thank
your
you so much.
number and also connect to you later if any queries.
Definitely.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Myself, Dr. Ram from Singapore.
Oh, wonderful. Nice to
Yeah.
have you
Very
join
nice
us.
to hear. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's a really amazing content and the information. As I live in Singapore for last more than 25 years, I would like to share a few things about the waste management system in Singapore. It is the
Please.
integrated waste management system. Many people are amazing to see how Singapore only can make it possible as very clean and hygienic status to maintain. Because of the country's requirement, they wanted to keep it very clean and hygiene for the people who are living here. But they are spending a lot, and it is the compliance and regulations organized by different authorities here. That's why they are spending a lot. The monetary wise, they are spending a lot, especially the 3R principle: recycle, reuse, and repair. Many things are progressing and creating the value for the modern society, like in Singapore. So my concern is how do we engage and educate the people over there as community-based learning, like the climate school or waste management kind of opportunity, the simulation environment, as you mentioned just now to the madam. How do they use the waste from the house or any industries or any communities? How do they practice? Because I heard a lot, especially the hospital waste or food waste from the hotel industries, even the vegetable waste or any solid waste. How do they effectively and efficiently recycle? It is the concern and it is the needed things for saving the earth because of not getting polluted well and destroying the health and well-being status of all other people. So we have to start certain way, as you mentioned, the community-based learning and exploration, how to make it very valuable or added things. Just now the madam also asked, the biodegradable plastics are available. She can get it from the source, how to use the biodegradable plastics. It is originated from the biological materials, and it is recyclable or it is degradable in the soil. That's the value. But mostly Singapore, the food contained materials, they don't reuse because it is contaminated with the food materials. It might be getting certain kind of pollution or microbes started to grow in that, so they don't want to reuse it. Just they are disposing. And Singapore, mostly the waste material they are incinerating and generating the power. Singapore's main power source, electric power source, they are creating from the waste energy sources. That is the value addition, and lot of other elements we have to look into that, how to save the earth by way of exploiting or making the destroying things to pollute it, the soil, water, and the air. So it should be a collective thinking and formulations we have to put it together. From the schools we can start because the children are the source first to learn a lot from these kind of environmental sustainability and the goal sets to meet out, and their behaviors will be given the chance in the school and the same thing to be reflected in the society. So the NGOs or NPOs could join hand with the government and implement all these facts. So I would like to handhold with you. I will get your number and we can work together for this kind of thought process. Thank you.
Definitely. I'll be delighted to work with you on these aspects. Yeah, as you rightly said, I mean, a country like India, we cannot go for these, high energy incineration and all that, because we have looked at it. The composition of India's waste is, as I said, more than 55% is organic matter. So trying to dry it first and then try to incinerate it is actually self-defeating because the amount of waste, amount of electricity. See, even in Delhi, they try to run so-called Euro-compliant incinerator, and it is half the time not working. The Ghazipur plant, the same way with the one which we have in Okla, the same way which is happening in Balaswa, all those kind of places, So the best option which has been worked out, which is a good example, is in Indore. I think you might have heard about Indore, which has won the cleanest city for almost 6 or 7 years running. And the reason is that they really do source separation of wet waste. And what we recommended, even when I was part of NIUA, when we were going and doing training and everything, was that even if packaging comes, like, with wet waste in it, we ask them to wash it and, put it either in the sluice or, into the sink or, separate it and put it in the compostables rather than, put it as such. Because like you said, even if it is kept like that with the wet waste, even for minimum, say 12 hours or 24 hours, then it cannot be touched even by you and me. We may have consumed that food from that particular container, like aluminum foil or a plastic or something like that. Unless you do it almost immediately within a few hours, it will start stinking. And you can imagine if you and I cannot touch it, how can that waste worker sitting in the MRF do it? He cannot also do it, he or she, whoever it is, isn't it? So this is very, very important that if we are going to use non-compostable or non-degradable material for packaging our food, then it should be washed, cleaned immediately within few hours of removal in such a way that then it can be dried and like that's what I do in my house. In my house, I have I mean, like I've had so many changes of maids. People say, oh, it's very difficult to train these people. Nothing. I have had dozens and dozens of changes of maids, and I have, gone to different cities and lived, and I have lived in a first floor house, ground floor house, top floor house, everywhere. I have not had any issues. I carry my composter. I have a recyclable bag where I, clean, dry, and put all the dry recyclables only. Then I separate, the usual stuff like newspaper, glass bottles, all those kind of things. And my one NGO is coming and taking the recyclables. The domestic hazardous waste is the only thing, like batteries or, expired medicines or something like that. That is where I have I have to depend on the municipality. So it gives very good resilience because, what happens is I keep noticing in my WhatsApp group, when it rains very heavily in Delhi, the waste worker will not come and they will start yelling, in the WhatsApp. Oh, what do I do with my waste and how do I put it? Where do I don't have to do that at all because I'm completely resilient. I can manage my waste. I can keep my batteries and all even for one whole year and give it to e-waste recycler or something like that. So this is the kind of thing that we have to bring in, that kind of thinking, that there are simple ways in which, you have to make changes to your life where, then you can recover much more and, create less waste and not depend on, because you see, in terms of urban revenue expenditure or allocation of the budgets, we cannot be like Singapore. We cannot, because it's a city state. They can, and also because of their GDP levels and all that, they are able to invest such a high amount. They are one city state. We are 8,000. So you can imagine, the difference between, so that is the reason.
That's why the self-sustainable manner, as you,
yeah. Correct.
As you mentioned, self-sustainable manner,
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah.
responsibility to
Correct.
reduce the waste
Correct.
or recycle the waste or making them to understand where to give, like e-waste
Correct.
and the cloth waste or any other waste.
Absolutely.
We have to promote this kind of
Yeah.
awareness
Yeah.
through the NGOs or some
NGOs.
social organizations
Correct.
may come forward.
Yeah.
Because it is the ultimate aim to keep the environment clean and the earth to be saved.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Yeah.
Even
So
it should
even
not
if,
making any
central or state governments may not give impetus to the small and medium enterprises, many of us, like the social groups, like civil society, can give impetus to small and medium enterprises through NGOs, through, awareness groups, through colleges, that kind of a thing.
There are many startups also established with this kind of thing.
Exactly. So, startups and then, of course, see, investment is always a problem. It is something, but if you do real think through, and if you do a real good design, a process design, and that type of a thing, there is a possibility that you can get a certain amount of investment, even from people who are interested in innovations, and everything may not come from the state, but we can also look at other type of angel investors and things like that also.
Thank you, ma'am. We will keep in touch. And
thank you so much.
Mohan, you had a question, Mohan. Mohan, you can ask, Mohan. You can unmute and ask your question, Mohan. Okay, one last question. Anyone else has a question, you may please unmute and ask your question, please.
Yeah, madam, actually, in the global warming effect, you forgot to add the Indonesian capital, Jakarta, which is sinking.
Yeah, like for instance, just not only Jakarta, I do agree, is in a bad state. But what about, there are so many islands in Mauritius, and, we already have Maldives, You know how the Maldivian
Yeah.
president, went and conducted a cabinet meeting underwater, isn't it? I mean, there are many cities which are, I might have, sorry, I might have missed out Jakarta, but yes, there are many cities which are endangered. Very true, very true.
There's one question in the chat box. Mr.
Okay.
Moore wants to know if you can share some information on training sessions for electronic waste.
Okay. Also, I think one Mr. Raghavan has put up his hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it? Let's see what is that also to do with. Mr. Raghavan, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, Mr. Raghavan. Yeah, Mr. Raghavan, please go on.
Mr. Raghuraman.
Raghu, please go on, Raghu.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It was a great session, Ms. Shyamala.
Thank
See,
you.
my question is primarily, I read an article long ago, are cows worse than cars, right? When it comes to climate change and environment pollution and all that.
Correct.
So what is the level of, the government, spreading the awareness about reducing the animal products consumption, especially dairy, and how is the response overall? Is there any, like Swachh Bharat, is government formally having any programs to create awareness for people to reduce the consumption, if not totally, stop it, but reduce the consumption of animal products, especially dairy, because it has got a far-reaching, from a health standpoint, from a deforestation standpoint, from pollution, climate change, because the methane, as you know, methane from these, dairy cows, are causing more global greenhouse gas emission than the automobiles combined. So what are your thoughts? And please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. No, I have a slightly different perspective, Mr. Agraman. It's like this. See, anything which is biological, I am not a vegan. I am not sort of recommending only vegetarianism. I may be a vegetarian, but I am not recommending only that. I am not saying that, people should eat this or that or not eat this or that. Because anything which is of a biological source, whether it is dairy products or whether it is cow dung, or it is manageable because it is part of the earth system. And all it needs is proper collection, and lots and lots of reasonable technologies are available, from biomethanation to various other ways of getting energy from it, converting it into biodegradable. In fact, the reason why it's giving off methane is because it is there is enough and more microorganisms in the soil, in the air, in the water, which is able to do it. So that itself is proof that it is not alien to the Earth's biological cycle. So I personally do not agree with you at all that it is more polluting than automobile vehicles and various other things. Because anything which is biological, if it is causing pollution, like I said, even sewage is a resource. Whether it is human excreta or animal excreta, they are all resource, as long as it is not mixed with industrial chemicals. It is only a matter of collection and management and using the correct technology to get energy, to get manure. So I would not discourage the dairy industry or any of those industries at all. But automobile pollution, particulate matter, PM 2.5, PM 10, they are really things which you cannot get rid of. And, even if you use, various types of, like you are using fossil fuels for it. And the fossil fuel will, produce only certain types of byproducts. And so whether it is diesel or whether it's petrol, you are going to get microfine particles. How are you going to, remove it from the air? So the most important thing, like somebody mentioned, is like Mr. Anil Goswami mentioned, is that prevention. Prevention is very important. If you allow, dairy waste or human excreta or animal excreta To go into the water resource, then you will be spending a lot more amount of money to, try to make it concentrated, because it will get diluted in the water. You'll have to concentrate it. Then you will have to subject it to biomethanation, then get the biogas, then treat it to a level so that the BOD comes down. And, you have to make sure that all the various things in it are completely, especially the bacteria and the E. coli and the coliforms are properly treated and managed. And then only you can let it out at 10 mg or something like that in surface water, or 30 mg or whatever it is. You will have to manage it. So I would not discourage any biological based industry at all, because it's only a matter of proper design, process design, collection, the correct technology, and you will always get resource out of it, either energy or energy plus water plus manure. But, industrial chemicals and all that, they are a different cup of tea completely.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ma'am, this question from Mohan, Mr. Ma'am. Can I get information on training sessions for electronic waste?
Okay, training sessions. So basically the Ministry of Information and Electronics, MeitY, it's called. That is, they are, the ones who are the custodians. That is, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change made the electronic waste management rules. But the custodian and the line ministry is the MeitY ministry, the Ministry of Information and Electronics Technology. So they are, I'm hearing that, they have trying to set up eco parks. They are trying to do training of informal waste collectors, and especially in the e-waste, like, in places in North India, like Muradabad and all that, they are Meerut, Muradabad, they are hubs of electronic waste recyclers. So, they are trying their best to teach them, and even IICT and several places in the country, they have developed, electrostatic methods of, separation. Even IIT Roorkee has got a, whole thing about recovery of copper and various other metals, apparent gold. And so through the Ministry of MeitY and, the department of the respective departments in the state governments, especially through the state pollution control boards, they are trying to do it. But, I think I would say that the industry sector, we ourselves can take it up as a, because I know that, states like Tamil Nadu and even Telangana, I think they have set up, their own decentralized, eco zones where electronic waste recycling is being given a certain amount of impetus. So that is where we really need to look at. I don't know whether I answered your question, but there's a possibility. Mr. Goswami, you wanted to say?
Yeah, one more question, last question. You see, you talk about water harvesting. I want to touch about, because most of the people, they have no understanding about the strata, clay, silt, sand, and gravel. This gravel and sand, they are a porous zone. They just are, even in Gurgaon, they are just making showpieces. They drill for 20, 30 feet and put the pipe and get the signature from civil authorities, though it is mandatory. So how to, most of the people, they don't do all this exercise. They are just making it as a showcase, model, and just befooling the government. In fact, befooling themselves. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember. Yes, you're absolutely right. There's a very, very serious want of proper understanding of the entire water harvesting structures. And I know that, like you're saying, that most of them just are not working, and they're not maintained also properly. Even that pipe that they put, whether even if it's perforated, they don't understand that every once in a while you have to take it out and remove all that debris, because otherwise, it'll just stop working. It will no longer be of any use at all. Of course, there are, certain NGOs which are trying to do this training. And but I think maybe in the case of Haryana and all that, I have a feeling the state will have to. I don't remember. I don't know whether you know. I know Satyashila Nair, when she was, in Tamil Nadu. She implemented rainwater harvesting with an iron hand. And I remember at that time, my grandparents were living in Chennai, and we had to implement it. And so I think it is also the state machinery that is also very, very important. And the unfortunate part is, can we look at, this is just a question, can we look at some of these capacity building training itself also as an industrial opportunity? That is what I'm saying, because we are only, as an industry sector, we only are looking at possibilities of taking our technology or equipment. Is it possible to also go into the field of training? That is what I'm asking. Whether it can be a sort of a feeder industry, which actually explains.
Yes.
Because many ULBs, I can tell you, the status of ULBs in our country is pathetic. When we were doing Swachh Bharat mission and even solid waste management, you see in the ULB, there is no urban cadre at all in India. We don't have an urban cadre. And there are people in many of the ULBs who have been there for 30, 40 years. That person maybe, I'm not belittling anybody, everybody has got knowledge. I respect everybody's knowledge. But, there might be a 12th standard pass or something like that. He may be being called as engineer in an urban local body, because that is all they have. I mean, if you have a tier 2 ULB, I remember when we used to ring up the commissioner often used to be, from the state services, or even in some places like Gurgaon and all, IAS officers and all that. So we used to say, can you please send this person for training, that person for training? They used to say, madam, we have only 7 people in our ULB. Whom should I send? Because they just, so is there a possibility that, we can, as an industry sector, can we come into this space? Because it's a very big opportunity. And I can tell you this much, especially
not only this, they're spending they're spending lakhs and crores of rupees on the maintenance of these fog structures.
Correct.
These structures are not at all functional, and they are maintaining them every year. Correct. And spending a lot of money on this.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Very
good. So, like, I feel that, capacity building and training and, human resource development, that is once we keep looking in India only at manufacturing and marketing. But, like many, I don't want to mention names, but, many very well-known management and economists have pointed out, there's a huge sector in the capacity building training and, that sector, whether that is the services, what is known as the services sector. So can we make some of these services sector also part of our industry?
So I think we'll not hold you any longer. We're taking quite a lot of.
Can I add one note?
Yes, please.
Yeah, the one lady who talked about regarding the plastic pouch used for packing. Actually, ours is a startup in Kerala, which uses this plastic from this food packing into a reuse case. If that particular lady is interested, then she can work with us in buying back the plastic, and we can make use of that in our innovation and reuse case.
See, madam, you've already got network.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think you can share your number or something so that I can connect you.
Subhadra, I'll send you the number.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Gopi, that I've really learned a lot by being with you all. And it's a very great opportunity. And I sincerely hope that, we have had a good discussion today.
Pleasure having you with us today, man. Thank you very much for taking your time out on a Sunday morning to be with us. And it was a great learning for all of us. Look forward to be staying in touch with you, and whatever help you require, probably from time to time, we'll keep disturbing you. Please support us with all
My
that.
pleasure, entirely.